Okay,
She's late.
the only person who's gonna look at them is Tracy to do the minutes.
We should start over. All right, quite all right. Round two. All right, this is the June 10th, 2024 Town of Nantucket Real Estate Assessment Committee. Members, please confirm your attendance. Lisa Apperstein,
Here,
Nat Lowell,
Here.
John Brusher, the chair, here. Staff, please confirm.
Tracy McDonald here.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
seconded.
Okay, not hearing any further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the approval of the minutes from May 13th, 2024. May I have a
Moved.
motion? So moved. So a second, motion made and seconded. Not hearing any further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Hearing that seeing it, we are the only members of, there are no members of public here and there are no members on Zoom. We'll move on from public comment. Real estate matters, Tracy, please confirm, but the homeowner has asked to continue Lot A Morgan Square, so
That is so confirmed.
we don't have to deal with that. All right, so on to next item on the agenda, discussion for creating a criteria and procedures for takings and yard sale program and priority tracking database with scheduled follow-up for owners for the backlog of yard sale conveyances and land court issues and discuss possible solutions. What do you got?
So this is a continued discussion from the last meeting and Arthur Reed's comments and some of our comments. And then I kind of did digging to try to find some existing guidelines, which I circulated, but they're very dated. And so we need to, so they proposed the RFP version. So that's how old they are.
Sure.
And so we really just have, but there are some things within it that do kind of apply, like, you know, the reasons for doing it and all those kind of things. So I had intended to print this out and kind of like be able to, you know, go through it and write. And I'm gonna still try to do that through like, I don't know what, you know, on my computer. I had no internet all day, so
Okay.
my printer wouldn't connect. Nothing would connect.
That's pretty bad.
So one of the things that I sort of really want to dig in about is the process and how it starts.
So.
And this is for private taking.
Yep.
Where then the idea is that the parcel.
When you say a private taking of private land or a private person
A private person,
taking somebody else's land.
No,
So
I think I know what she
Yeah.
means.
So I think.
She doesn't mean, she meant
It's the town-
private benefit.
It's the town that's doing the taking.
Town is,
So,
yeah,
but the homeowner
Which is-
files the warrant article.
right, the
So-
homeowner initiates.
So
Okay,
Joe homeowner over in Wisconsin says, hey, I live at the dead end of a street. We've got frontage on two roads and we've got, the road ends here, and I've got a paper street along the last, 30 feet. Let's file, can we
and
Can we
the homeowner,
extinguish this?
9 times out of 100 or 100 times out of 9 is represented by council.
Well, that's the question. That is part of what I want to be part of.
Yeah.
So
Future.
generally, because it's a fairly sophisticated concept, it's not something where they say, hey, can I extinguish all rights of others in my backyard?
yeah, that's the first question,
Yep.
but that's usually handled. The abutters already know and they're already part of it, usually half the road or whatever the case is.
So that's the interesting part. I mean, when speaking for myself, when I've done it for clients, it's been a discussion with planning and
Yep.
saying, hey, is this even
Yeah.
worth entertaining? Or is this going to be a non-starter? And then it's a discussion with the homeowner and say, hey, you might want to get your other neighbors involved in this. A,
Yeah.
because you can't take the whole thing. B, because, you can split costs. It's a smart thing.
Yeah.
C, it's nice to have neighborhood involvement.
Your mention of discussion with planning puts me into another committee. At one time, the director of planning would come to roads and right of way.
Yeah.
And say, we have a request, a proposed warrant article And I want to reassure you that there's no evidence of
Sure.
pedestrian use of this. Or conversely, there is strong evidence of pedestrian use. And so when we go through the process,
Keep,
we will be adding an easement
Yep.
for the pedestrian path.
Absolutely.
And I think that needs to go
Yeah,
into
no.
it.
We agree,
Yeah,
that is one of the.
and just let me just. I'm so glad I'm here now. Cause this
We are
stuff
too.
is, there's so many moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
And it needs to, and there's a lot of exaggeration and misstatements about
Yep.
this program that I have had to listen to for 15 years or 7 or
Mhm.
13 or whatever it is. So if you go back a long time, you're gonna remember, how long have you been here?
I remember.
Okay, good. Oh, this is good. Then you're gonna like what I'm gonna
I
say.
remember the start of the
The
program.
original, no, but I'm gonna use a different program to tie into how we should be
Yep.
thinking. This, how you hook up to sewer.
Yep.
The checklist, back when sewer commission first got rolling on all this, like, you have to tick this box, this box, this box, and this box for this to get to town meeting.
That's what I want to do.
That's what
I
we
think-
need to do with this.
Yep.
Yeah.
However, it isn't always about this person in lug 3 is gonna be on sewer just because they don't wanna put a new septic in, but they got lug 3 zoning, like, it makes no sense. But there are some, like down at the end of not Milestone Crossing, yes.
Oh, yep.
At the end of Milestone Crossing, this came up, where it butted the other end of,
Hinsdale.
Hinsdale,
Yep.
where there's.
Yep.
Sewer close by, like, you get into this.
Yep.
And it's like, well, we're gonna make an exception for one person. So to get into the yard sale part and this whole thing, this all started with Steps Beach. And the stuff down at Halbert a little bit, but Steps Beach, even though that wasn't a yard sale, it was a cooperative agreement between 2 property owners. Nantucket residents never had rights to Steps Beach on paper. It was never legal. We just think we owned it, and the amount of good that's come out of this program is scary, how great this is. There'd be no such thing as the one big beach. You just have a song, but no lyrics, no music. Okay, without what Andrew did with all this.
So Nat.
So I just wanted to say this real quick, so. On one of the biggest criterias that doesn't get set. Is the subdivision capability of opening a road by an abutter in Massachusetts. That you don't need a permit to open up a paper street, like it just can happen. Like by somebody, so if we're taking away. The ability for like A&R to happen somewhere, let's just say. That's. Not more development, because we get accused of making more development when we're really not, we're cleaning up. People's backyard with roads crisscrossing, all kinds of crazy stuff in a lot of cases, and then the other ones. Are, yes, there's a benefit to the town for public access in those cases where there is, like all the stuff in Surfside. And I think there was been some stuff in Monomoy as well, but. I just don't wanna see this program I want it to get better. I don't want it to go away or we don't do this anymore, you know what I mean, like.
Yep.
Sometimes a property owner is getting more than the town. Sometimes the property owner is getting almost everything. But what has to be looked at as this stuff was done in hundreds of years ago, when no one was thinking about. Any of this, just like code 2 was
Right.
subdivided all the way from First Point to the Backus property. A zillion roads, like, I mean, it's hard to believe.
There are paper roads on this.
So you gotta look at Nantucket as this sort of historic anomaly of roads, and that here we are, over a century later, cleaning this up. So you gotta kinda, you know what I mean? Like, I just want it to work.
I don't want you to stop, but there was
Yeah.
one piece that you mentioned that I think goes into your checklist, it's infrastructure.
Yes.
Well,
So the
good
first one
example.
was pedestrian access, the second one is the infrastructure or infrastructure issues.
So I would also add,
That's
Like that Lover's Lane one the other day.
And electricity.
so I would also add, yeah, as it seems to be a topic that comes up more, is, for when it's applicable, and it isn't always, coastal resiliency.
I was just.
Yeah.
I think they
Without
need to be
question, that's
included.
number 3.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw one at you.
Yeah.
You guys are like, I'm just sort of memory lane stuff, but here's the problem with that. No one remembers anything anymore here.
Oh, no.
Nobody remembers a thing. So the hospital that we now drive by every day and say, oh, that's the hospital. No, that's the new hospital. That did a Stop and Shop flip.
So just like the news how.
But what made that possible?
Right.
That 40-foot road behind the hospital. That just was there, not North Mill Street. This was a different road. It didn't have a
I
name,
was part of that.
an unnamed way,
I was, and it was.
and
half-
that
it was half-
became the negotiating.
It was
tool.
half owned by the town and half owned by the hospital,
All right,
and roads and right of way
Wow.
negotiated with the hospital
well,
in exchange for an entry to the historic colored cemetery to be maintained by
That's-
the hospital.
that's part of it, but the other stuff is the deals we got for the future road. Moving that one house and some other things, so we have some good agreements because of this road. So there are times where there isn't even a price you can put on some of the benefits, and then other stuff, it's nickels and dimes. It's a very odd scenario, because what's happening is. And I know where this stuff comes from, I'm not gonna bring that up, but. There's an assumption that it's all worth millions, it's not. You might be adding a little ground cover to someone's yard. You might be you don't know what their lot size really is, it could be wetlands, it could be this, it could be that, they may not have very much ground cover at all. You know, there's all kinds of different things that get affected by this.
So Lee will remember this, when we first were tasked as a committee.
Yeah.
It was a question of valuation. And I think you and I have spoken about this, but we concluded at the time that we can't price a property based on potential use. We can't say, well, because even if the person can add as we said, millions, by adding millions, by adding another bedroom for their septic account, they may not do it. They may say, well, that sounds lovely, but I don't want a 6-bedroom house. I'm happy with having a garden here, or I'm happy with, ground cover, whatever it may be. And so we can't charge people based, and I think it's a slippery slope. If we start basing this on, well, you could do.
Yeah, I agree.
This.
This is like using sewer for growth control.
So as a quick
I know.
summary, from what I recall, mainly for Tracy's benefit, we agreed that there was a base price per square foot.
That's
Which from time to time we have
needs
to
to go up
reexamine.
once in a while.
And that then
Agreed.
there were calibration factors based on neighborhood viewpoints, nearness to the water.
Mhm.
And those would get calculated because they were there, they were real.
Yep.
So do we wanna go to a increase in the base square footage?
I think it's based on, I would, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
I
but
think we did one.
but if we do, I think that Rob Randy should come in and talk to
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, I'm not saying we should do it, but if it's something to talk about, sort of revamping the
So-
program.
Tracy, for
Maybe
your,
a problem.
for your checklist, the issue is what factors would pertain?
So I have already divided my working list into categories.
Yep.
So there is the category where it's a paper road and it's in the middle of nowhere and nobody's using it. And the abutters on either side just want to close it up. It doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And they submit a warrant article and then they fully get the benefit because there's no benefit to the town. So there's those, that is.
Well, there's a modest benefit
So
to
there's a lot of, in terms of like
taxes. really.
taxes, right?
And yes, and you don't want to belabor that, but we can't forget that.
No.
No.
Once this stuff gets reset, like 14 Poplar and the one you told me it was worse. Which I didn't think there was one that could possibly have been crazier than that. I mean, that, you gotta think about the cleanup. Tristram's Avenue, I'm never gonna forget Tristram's Avenue, nobody knows about Tristram's Avenue, nobody. There's a highway through the back of these yards, all the way down to 40th Pole, it's like.
It's on the GIS.
So getting them to put easements in and stairs to the beach and all this kind of stuff.
That's separate, so.
No, I know, but it's crazy
That's a
though.
different category within my list. So
Yeah.
then there's the list of, you know, the way being, or the paper road being taken for the purpose of a pedestrian easement or one big beach or whatever, which is, you know, a benefit to the public as a whole, and
So Tracy, your categories look at a potential benefit. We go back to the assessor saying, I've got 7 factors that I apply. And they range from 0, not 0, 1, a factor of 1, we multiply the base price by 1, up to a factor of 8 or 9.
okay.
Yeah, and
And so
with Rob.
your list should be consistent with the assessor's list.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think this is sort of the right path that before, and I think you're right, Tracy, that there's sort of 2 categories that we need to look at here. One is the scenario where somebody, you know, Mr. and Mrs. homeowner says, I've heard about this program, I'd like to do this. And I think that's where we start. They say, oh, you would, fantastic. Here's the checklist. You need to talk to the real estate specialist. Then we have to have a discussion with roads and right of way and crack and all these things that they can do the laundry list to see if it's worth
And then
advance.
how do you feel in, so here's how it's been going, my understanding is. A homeowner goes in and says to Andrew Force, I'd like to do this, and then Andrew kind of runs through the thing with them, and then they engage an attorney or an engineer or whatever they're gonna do and start going for the article. You know, that procedure is probably not gonna exist anymore. There's not gonna be walking into planning.
I assumed, to add more to your plate, that they'd be chatting with you.
Right, so, or do we have them make a formal application
Sure,
to
sure.
this?
Tracy, I used to teach my students, get to know your permitting agency, get to know this, talk to them first, you can save yourself a lot of time. I still think an informal consultation is a good
Planning.
first start.
See,
with
the
whomever.
the reason that, okay, so I'm gonna unfortunately use the steamship authorities. My 20 years of dealing with it in a capacity, and then the other 15 of just like doing it. You cannot replace institutional knowledge, especially now. It ain't easy. It takes years to learn, okay? So Andrew had the ability, like I do with my work, it's like I can figure something out without even thinking about it. It's like all in my head, like there's no book to figure it out. I do think moving forward, hate that term, but we need to have a planning element still,
Well, there has
because
to be a planning.
no, but there has to be a vetting of some kind for, just like there is with town, just like there is
We
with,
get it vetting like they.
What
go
do you
to
think's
me
gonna-
And I go to.
yeah,
Megan
yes,
Or something
like,
that.
yes. You reach out to Andrew if he's in his position, reach out to Leslie, reach out to Megan, people that know, but nobody knows as much as him. But like to say, okay, what's gonna happen out here? DPW, whatever, there's always something for land bank or
Always something.
conservation. It depends on where it is. There's roads in places that, hey, maybe we should have a parking lot for the beach, whatever, it doesn't
Oh, I
matter.
know that is. going
There's
on.
so many moving parts,
Yeah,
but my big concern is. Like when you go out to Surfside, well, the best ones off of, the roads off of Hinkley are kind of like part of some of this kind of stuff. Where you have these like roads that sort of don't have a name, all of a sudden there's a name. And now we've got frontage. We have to look at all of this subdivision stuff. What's the zoning? What's it gonna be? Is it ever gonna change?
Right.
Is sewer coming? Like, those are the questions that I would call it a coordinated review. In a different way, like
Right.
planning
Yeah.
DPW sewer committee, you know, all that stuff kind of plugged in.
It,
I'm
it
gonna tell
makes
you
sense,
this, in
actually,
two
yeah.
thousand six, when that's Sachem's,
Yeah.
not Sachem's, Abrams Quarry.
Yeah.
40B across from my house. We did everything we could do, Tracy, and this is something that you can't make up.
I
Okay,
know because I lived there and I did the whole neighborhood.
well, okay, all right, but then you'll know what I'm
I
gonna
know
say.
everything.
Cause it's so most frustrating thing is when I have to say, the town fought tooth and nail to not let that septic pump station be at the lowest spot. So no one would ever hook up, ever. Guess what? Everybody's putting a grinder pump in now because they can't use gravity. And they're paying through the nose and they're all locals.
Yep.
And it never should have happened. That pump station should be down at the corner. And that Dennis guy's house should be back 20 feet towards where the pump station is now. And you would have had gravity sewer for the entire neighborhood. But that was only, 18 years ago, we were saying the word no as loud as we could. And now we're saying the word yes as loud as we can for the same exact thing. It's the most bizarre thing to see that happen in front of your face.
It's time.
So
Yep.
So my point is that having a true vetting of certain roads, certain things, like this Lover's Lane thing that you guys just did is unbelievable. I mean, I could never have, I'm like, wait a minute, this is gonna be drainage for Lovers? All in favor, say aye. Bye, see you later, this is great.
Yep.
But you wouldn't have known that if somebody didn't ask.
We've got different issues all under the rubric of taking. We've been talking about
Right.
paper
Yeah.
ways,
Exactly.
which is one case. We do a lot of taking of a butter's property so as to put in a bike path.
Right.
Andrew used to come to us and say, the reason it's taking so long is I'm trying to get every property owner to understand the benefit to reduce the potential for litigation against the town for a condemnation proceedings.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
I have those going on now.
Yeah.
Like, I currently have that situation going on in two different locations.
Sure.
So I do understand that. I'm talking about more of all these people, so in the existing list.
Yeah.
There are all these people who've been on the list, some of them 15 years
Yep.
or longer. And what's happened is whatever attorney was representing them, they got frustrated, they dumped the attorney. So now they're calling me as an individual with no attorney. And they don't at all understand the process.
Okay.
And they want to move forward, but it's very difficult to move forward. So I'm gonna give you an example. I have a group of 5 or 6 very local homeowners, year-round residents, who years ago started a take for a paper road, and it's in Landwood. To my knowledge, they've never had an attorney. They've always sort of been grouped together. And so they've now contacted me. They want to move forward. And I looked at the land court petition. And I have said to them, you have got to get an attorney.
Yeah.
So, that's an example of, and they're not the only ones. I have like tons of private homeowners contacting me constantly. And I don't think we can move forward with the process without representation.
Without explaining any details or names. I was on my one jury experience here in Nantucket. And on the jury with me, and I'm a professional engineer, was Art Gasparo, a professional engineer. Arthur Reed, a well-known attorney. And the attorney for the defendants who are being sued for absence of payment of a construction bill. I'm sorry, where am I headed? Art Gasparo, the attorney was saying that there had not been the appropriate signed documents. And Art and I knew that for the building of a home, you didn't need a professional engineering signed document. In the end, they lost and declared bankruptcy. So the builder never did get his money. In the jury room, here's the point of my story. In the jury room, the foreman, the 4-person was in charge and we got organized, but as we were discussing, it's now time to open up a little bit. He said, you know, you can pay an attorney at the beginning a modest sum. Or you can pay the attorney at the end a great deal of money. And Arthur said, this case is so archetypical, I'm gonna suggest it as a case that get your attorney sooner, not later.
So,
John.
I agree.
I just think it's making the process much more difficult for them not
So,
to not only not understand, but then not have the proper sort of advice of how it needs to be done.
so without going too far down the rabbit hole, because I know we do need to leave in a little bit. I mean, it would seem to me that for the people who have been waiting for X number of years, that you can lump them into two categories. Either you're at land court or you're not. And it seems like the ones
That's
who are,
true.
it seems like the ones who are not in land court, we might actually be able to, we can work on the coordinated review aspects of these that Nat mentioned, which I think is a brilliant idea.
It's not a coordinated review like you have to
I
like
know.
in
And I
front of
do,
it, you
and
know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
do.
a
But
isn't it?
It's the right
Right?
way
And
to
I
call
will
it.
say that I
Yeah.
also do a coordinated review before it goes to select. board. So I go here, I go to coastal resilience, it's already been
Yeah.
vetted through planning.
Yeah.
You know, but because of this list being, with various different persons in and out of the position,
Oh, yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of like skipped stuff in
Yeah.
between for the.
It
it's the
has
big
to be.
ones.
I can't see how it can.
But going forward, we could control all that.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think to that end, sort of going back or going back to those two groupings.
Categories, yeah.
Yes, especially because land court is effectively going to require that the homeowner almost file their own petition. So they're gonna need counsel.
They will need counsel.
They
I
will.
will also tell you that Vicky has had, Vicky Marsh, who's
Yep.
town council, has had a letter with a list delivered of all the pending land court
Yep.
town things. Land court is getting organized. And
Oh, good.
so they also getting organized and they have requested, sort of a status update and then
Oh,
sort of assignments.
dare to dream.
And so her and I have already had a discussion about how that's gonna move forward. So that'll be
That's
sort of the existing petitions that are filed and whether we can, for the yard sale ones, add attorneys to those.
so that's phenomenal. So that would take care of that, but I mean, this, again, the second bucket, you
I know.
figure what we can
So
do.
the other concern I have
Yep.
is like things like, so I'm gonna give you an example. We have Hawthorne Street, which is down on Belvedere.
Mhm.
And,
Down on over there, you mean Surfside over there?
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
and-
there's multiple over there.
I know,
It's
sorry.
like poacher
Yeah,
and
right.
wee weeder.
Yeah, right.
We get this one on
Right.
roads and right away. There are posts that say public way, and there are all sorts of reasons not to mow it and not to let people out. Because they would be walking into Conservation Commission controlled lands. The bluff is steep, there's no way down to the beach, anybody who tries is gonna get hurt, and yet it's a public way.
But
So-
that's because it,
So this was a paper road that's been taken.
Yeah.
One of the abutters on one side was elderly woman who Andrew had multiple
Yep.
discussions with.
Yep.
The other side, and that's an unregistered parcel. On the other
oh,
side
it's all this.
is a land court parcel.
Yeah.
So now, Surfside Association kind of got up in arms because they saw a land court subdivision of the land court parcel and assumed that the town was conveying the parcel to the gentleman. In the meantime, the elderly woman passed away. So, and they knew that.
Yep.
So then they kind of assumed he was not only getting the land court half interest, but that he was gonna have the option
No.
to essentially
End up
close
on
the way,
abutters land.
which is not
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
And I can
Right.
definitively say that, and I've talked, you know.
That would make this funky little box in their
Right.
property,
Right.
that's not what you're looking to do.
Right, but there does seem to be a gap in communication, like I've gone through all the channels, but like. Like, they really they thought the beach was gonna be like closed up or, you know. all-
This is all this jibber jabber and conspiracy stuff that happens, and that's where the stuff comes from.
Well,
That can't, I know how that happened.
So
No.
so that's the other thing is that, you know, there has to be some mechanism that, like. For instance, with that taking, I'd like to have a write-up that says, this is the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus,
Well, and you know
it
that-
just B and B who has
and
it
but-
in my head.
Well, you know, that's a really good point, and that perhaps that when somebody, you know, sort of moving forward, that when somebody wants to have one of these petitions or petitions the town for a taking, that there's a statement of purpose. You know, the point of this is to do this, and then the town can say, yes, that's fine, but it's also to ensure there's a pedestrian easement, or there's also this, that.
Right,
just so that
maybe there needs
everybody-
Some kind of a form that gets.
That
filled
everybody
out.
knows going
Yeah.
forward, because again, I think it comes up on occasion where homeowners, it comes time for disposition, they're like, all right, we're ready for it. And they say, oh, what do you mean there's gonna be a path?
Yeah.
And you go on GIS, say, hey, there's a path there, that's what it is. What do you think's gonna happen? So, I think that's, if you want to try to take a very preliminary crack at that, I think that would be, we'd be moving at a tremendous pace. That's, I mean, I think that would go a long way in getting this set up and moving, advancing any future. Yeah, I'm cynical, though. I don't think there are gonna be that many more in the future. I don't know. I feel like we've got so many to clean up as well,
They do,
but
they come up, what I'm seeing is they come up in the course of a project, like for
Yeah.
instance,
Sure.
I just weirdly. In the Lovers Lane thing, that intersection of Lovers and Dave Camp. That where that puddle is, it's not part of Richmond and not
No, it's not,
part of but it's not also the abutters.
it's, yeah, never mind.
Yeah,
it's a longer story.
Yeah.
It's
so,
that has to get fixed someday. I've talked to Dave
it's
Aminetti about that 100 times. It's like,
in the current
at some
plan
point,
to
it
be
has,
fixed.
it's,
In it, but I
Yeah.
can't, now I need an easement, so. Yeah,
we're gonna telephone poll still harder.
but that's what I'm saying, so they come up, you know, things are.
Yeah.
They
No, I
will
understand.
come up as the roads erode
Yep.
and like things, you know, things will start to evolve and come up, maybe more for a public purpose, but all these other private homeowners who wanna close up access to the beach or, you know, all kinds of other things that they're trying to do.
Well, the reason it
It
comes up
will
during
still
project,
come up,
it
I
comes
think.
up because people know about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nobody ever did anything
so
before.
I think that they will come up, and maybe you're right, John, not as frequent, but,
So this is, Tracy. I don't think this is really going to be part of your list, but from time to time, people in roads and right of ways say, how many additional access points to the beach are there that need to be taken,
yeah.
that are private?
That's a
but-
good
but-
So I
project.
have
Yeah,
one
right.
I have one on the queue now. I have a second one that may or may not happen, and then, but I do have a couple different ones that have been.
And to add to that question. How many places do we have that have no effect on private property? As far as constructed, buildable, already built, that could be conveyed. To land bank or conservation, depends upon who is the.
That's
closest.
already, that whole master
Right.
plan sort of is already.
It already happens, because. We can get into that as far as like the whole mitigation
Mhm.
Yeah,
situation.
that's all.
Okay, because. That to me is the biggest, nobody understands thing. Including me, but I do now. It took me a year and a half to figure out what that means. I could not understand it. And. And I think, Tracy. Winding down. Will never really happen for a long time. Because there's so many of these things, but if we could. Create a narrative where it's a slow. Process, but it is. Happening, like
Right.
this thing what he just said about separating the land court versus not, that's obviously, that's a huge issue, and that should affect the price. For the person.
Yep.
It's more money to deal with land court. Obviously, whether it's them having to retain someone or whatever the cost involved, whether it's the town's cost or theirs, it's gonna be more.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're having this conversation now. This is good.
Yep.
So I don't really have anything else to add now. I mean, I just want to make sure that we're
It,
not
This is a good start. You
clean.
might wanna start
We need to,
develop-
we need to, we don't,
there-
we
there
need to
was-
just fix it and make it better.
there was a time when we weren't sure why we were needed.
Oh, I
Well,
know.
We've,
what that was.
I think it's good.
I'm
We
the
started,
one that got you to do this.
we started moving beyond that. So that's
Maybe we can make it really exciting. We can get another member.
Well, I think,
dare to dream.
I think the real estate committee can do more than this,
Do we have?
We should.
you
Oh,
know?
I haven't looked at it, right?
I think they, no, Erica mentioned it the other night. I think
We
they're
still need one.
putting it out there or something. This committee is needed for a bunch of reasons. I know why it originally needed to happen. Was trust,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
now I think it can be bigger. I think there's things that can be looked at through a different lens,
Yeah.
but stuff the town wants to do. Some of the joint projects that may come down the road.
I think,
pun
I
intended,
think,
road,
I think
but
we're getting, there.
yeah,
Sure,
think we're getting there.
between
Yeah.
the two Ps, philosophy and procedure, we've got something to talk about.
Yeah, I think so. And I have a few ideas of some stuff
Great.
that I just.
this is a
wanna-
planning subcommittee. This is like planning. It's
Right,
more to
even though
do
we're under
with
town
planning than it
admin,
does
yeah.
with anything else.
Yeah.
If you really wanna know,
Yeah.
I mean,
The link is R&E, real estate.
if you took, right, if you took. For example, when I was on the Surfside area plan thing, which was. Way before they changed all the minute taking and all that kind of stuff. We used to sit at Ed Fawcett's house, and if he wasn't available, he'd sit at somebody else's house. And
Poor Ed is on.
Ed Fawcett, is he still around? Amazing. His little house on Poacher on the left. So anyway. When we talked about Boulevard. And nobody, and the Boulevard Roads is what it was called, even though that wasn't the name, the Braun subdivision.
Yep.
Which hardly anybody have even heard of. Getting that moving has been going on for a quarter of a century. Yeah,
Right.
you know how many select board members have run on those roads to fix this stuff and it's still not done? It's amazing. And nobody ever saw PFAS coming and having to dig up and for that, but. The bike path part. And how Boulevard is 80 feet wide and the others are 40. Was never talked about in those meetings because nobody knew. Nobody even thought about those things.
Yeah.
So how far we've come just with that and seeing it to fruition someday is. In my opinion, if this committee was around back then, looking at that holistically, and love is it. I think there's a lot that this committee can do. As a part of a checklist for certain things beyond paper streets. I really think so.
I agree. And I think we're there, and I think we're on the right track. So if you can get us something or keep that as work in progress and keep us updated.
Work in progress. Maybe at the end of each agenda, we'll just talk about it a little bit each time.
Great.
and-
This is
That'd
like
be
the
wonderful.
bike committee. Without any. It's like neutral, like the
Yeah.
bike committee is, no, that's a good thing. the
Yeah, I think
BPAC
so.
committee. So
Well,
anyway,
okay.
I'm
All right.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
So I think Lee and I need to scoot pretty soon, so we'll tackle this as an ongoing topic. And so moving on, next item on the agenda is any other business.
I think we just did it.
I think we just did it. So with that in mind, may I have a motion to adjourn at 2:55?
So moved. Mr.
Sure.
Chairman.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much.
So I had a grade school teacher who told me that even though it was spelt with a T, it was pronounced with an